You're listening to part 2 of a Dear Applicants podcast episode. Check out last week's episode to listen to part 1 of this interview. Hello everyone. Just wanted to let you know that we're going to be holding a speaker series on US and UK admissions over the weekend of the 2nd and 3rd of September. If you're in Singapore or will be at the time, do hop over to ivyprep.com.sg/US-UK event today to register for the event. Looking forward to seeing you there. Moving back to the university essays, so it was something that was easy for you, something that came naturally. But what was the process of thinking about those stories, especially when you think, I think your story was quite unusual, right? You're normally talking about action or something of that nature in your essays, or talking about an experience or memory. But for you, it's more these brief moments in time that you get every day to yourself. How did you even come up with that?
See, that's why it was subversive, and that's why my university advisor loved it so much. I actually had a draft before I wrote one draft about bookstores, and it was a natural thing because I read the Costco essay and I was like, what's my Costco? And I was like, bookstore. So I wrote about being in a bookstore and just being like so inspired by all the knowledge. And it was like an okay essay. It was good.
What bookstores are you going to in Singapore?
Well, Kinokuniya.
Oh, right.
It's nice. But I wrote about that, and that is kind of a sanctuary space, and it got approved, and everyone was like, yeah, this is a pretty good essay. We like it. And then I was like, I don't think it's wowed anyone though. So then I was in the space where I was like, I feel like I need to think more. And then I just happened to be going home one day, and I was like caught in a traffic jam, and it was like dead time, and I was thinking about stuff. I was just like thinking about life. And I was theorizing, and I was,
Bus is home from UWC, what, the 196 or the 33?
It was the 14 at the time. The route has changed. Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah, I was just thinking, and then I was like, I kind of want to write about this. So I went home and I started writing. This was 4 days before the UWC internal deadline for the Common App essay.
Which, to be fair, is quite early, right?
Yeah.
Haven't we already... We've already passed it, right? If you were to put yourself in this year?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
So it was quite early, but it was 4 days before the internal deadline. And then I had this like idea for a new essay. So I started writing it. I finished it very quickly. I finished it in like an hour because it just kind of fell out of me. And my dad read it and he was like, this one is so good. Like, this is the one. So I emailed my university advisor and I was like, I'm so sorry, but I have a new one.
Can we change it?
And then he was like, okay, show it to me. And I sent it to him and he was like, this is the essay.
Okay.
So it was a very chaotic process.
Can we see it? Can we read it?
I don't know. It's been so long now.
I mean, if you have two adults going, this is the one, and I think it's worth reading. Share with us.
Perhaps, yeah.
And when you get to the supplementaries, then you said you had a little bit of
yeah,
trouble over there, right?
It was more because there were more of them.
It took actual groundwork.
It took groundwork, and it wasn't as reflective. And the word count constraints were more limiting. Mm-hmm. So.
And you only got the chance to apply to Brown, right? Because you applied early.
I started writing essays for other schools,
right,
but I never submitted
them,
a lot of them.
And you completed the Brown ones. Why Brown?
Wow. Takes me back to my Why Brown essay. No.
Totally my intention.
It was actually because of Gilmore Girls. Because I watched Gilmore Girls and I was like, it would be so on the nose if I applied to Yale. So I kind of don't want to do that. So where should I apply? And I looked at all of them. And then I was kind of like, well, I'm kind of chill. I say after having just talked about like my 1 million activities. But I was like, I would like to perceive myself as chill. So maybe Brown is like the right one because it had that reputation. And then I spent more time looking into it. And then I read about like how I would never have to take a math class again because of the open curriculum thing. But beyond that, I was like, I'm just really interested in the idea of not really having to go in with a direction and having just like time to figure it out. Because I went in as an English major and I ended up a comparative literature major. Mm-hmm. Even though they're kind of similar in some ways, there are big differences between the departments as well. So I think there are a lot of like little changes I made when I got there. But before I got to Brown, I think there were just a lot of things about it that interested me. The flexibility, just the flexibility of it, and also just like the general vibe of the school.
Did you know people who had gone there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I knew a few people who had gone there. And I had also attended all the university fairs here.
Oh,
There's
right,
like a
yeah.
Straits Times one, and the people at the Brown like booth were really nice to me. And one guy also had the same birthday as me, so I was like, "This is
Like, this
fate."
is a sign. When is your birthday?
15th July.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was like, "This is destiny." Water signs, so we gotta go.
What
Gotta
is
go to
July again?
Cancer.
Okay, I'm
Crab.
also a water sign,
Yeah.
but anyways. Now I've completely lost my train of thought. We were talking about Brown. Were there any other ones that you were thinking of, or close seconds?
Yeah, I was gonna, if I didn't get into Brown, I would have applied ED2 to Amherst College.
Okay. Why Amherst
Yeah.
and not some of the other New York ones? Okay, yes, Brown is a little bit outside. But
I think that one of the things that appealed to me about Brown was like the whole liberal artsy vibe.
and so Amherst. Was.
So I was like, I'll either do Brown or a liberal arts college probably. And that was my train of thought. I was like, I want either the most liberal artsy Ivy or a liberal arts college.
And did you have the chance to apply to the UK? You did, and then you withdrew.
I did. I applied on UCAS. Let me think about where I applied. I think like St. Andrews and UCL, Edinburgh. I can't remember the rest.
Would you have gone to the UK over, say, your third or fourth choice in the US?
I don't think so. I think that I was really set on going to the US for undergrad. Okay. Yeah. Because the other colleges on my list in the US were Amherst, Williams, Bowdoin, like
Also the classic liberal arts colleges. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And so when you get that letter, the admissions letter, what are the next 6 months like? Did you just... I would have taken
the
my
first
foot
thing
off the
I
gas.
did was I cried for like an hour.
Did you take one of those like acceptance videos?
I didn't take an acceptance video because I was so scared I'd like get rejected, and then
then
I
you
would
have that
have this
video
like
over there, yeah.
MP4 of the worst moment of my life. Like, you know, like I just like I didn't want that. I didn't want to risk that. And also like the way like the lead up to me opening this email was so unhinged. I like played the SpongeBob themed dubstep remix because I was like, I want to add levity to the situation. I want like a bit of lightness, and I want this whole thing to feel absurd. So if I don't get in, it's just like the absurdity of the universe. Like it's, you know,
What is a SpongeBob themed dubstep remix?
Yeah, it's no trap remix. Yeah, yeah. So I had that playing like on loop for the like half an hour before I opened it. So I opened it. And I was like sitting in the balcony of our apartment. And then I screamed, like I screeched when I got in. And then I told my parents. And then I went to school. And somehow everyone already knew because I told one friend. And she posted it on my Facebook. And then everyone started posting it on my Facebook wall. And then everyone just knew. So that was kind of a fun day. But it was always a really weird day when like any ED acceptance came out.
Because everyone else was
and also like there are people presumably who applied and didn't get it, right? So it also felt like a bit weird to be too loud about celebrating it, even though you were really excited for yourself.
Before we continue, I would like to take a quick break to remind you to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us improve and to reach a wider audience to provide further insight into this arduous journey. Also, if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, feel free to email us at our email linked in the description below. We'd love to hear from you. And tell us about Brown once you actually get there. I mean, I know there was a lot of time, but did you just take your foot off the gas? After that? I know I did after I got my college acceptance.
I don't know if I took my foot off the gas. I think that...
I'm sure you had a ton of responsibilities with your extracurriculars anyways, right? So
But because I was able to focus on things that really, really mattered to me, like classes in Comp Lit, classes in philosophy, and I didn't have to do anything that, you know, felt external to like what I wanted to study.
Except math.
Yeah, I didn't have to do math. I didn't have to do any of that, except philosophical logic was a bit stressful.
Oh, no. Oh, so you're already talking about Brown.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. Like, you mean in high school?
Yeah. But no worries. Tell us about Brown.
Oh, right. Oh, well, in high school, after I got in, I was like, I I still wanted to do fine. Like, I still wanted to, like, get through everything. And, like, I didn't want to, like, end badly just because I had got in early. So I still had, like, all my extracurriculars to deal with. And, like, I had a specific fear of, like, disappointing my English teacher. So I had to do well in HL Lit. Like, if I didn't do well in HL Lit, I would have, like, never forgiven myself.
Yeah, I ended up disappointing my history teacher. I think he quit after that. Never came back.
I disappointed a couple of my teachers, but, like, not in a really meaningful way. It'd be, like, a 1 point drop from the predicted. But so long as I kept my literature score, I was like, that's fine. So that's what
That was all that mattered to you anyways.
That was what mattered to me at the time. And then when I got to Brown, it was kind of similar. I started focusing, like, a lot on literature, a lot on, oh my God, I had one ill-fated, like, yeah, I guess, like, I tried taking principles of economics, and I was, like, not super interested. Not for any, like, real fault of the class. It was just not my thing. So I had, like, moments where I was like, I'm going to branch out. And then I was like, I'm going to branch in again.
Were you having those sort of corporate sellout girly moments?
I was like, maybe I will be a girl boss.
Okay.
You know?
And you lasted a week, principles of economics.
Did
you join the investment group and the consulting group?
I finished the class.
Okay.
I did take it pass fail.
Okay.
I passed.
Okay.
I don't want to know what my grade would have been. That's it, you know? But yeah, but because I could really take a lot of, like, comp lit and philosophy classes, I was just so obsessed with what I was studying that it did feel like work, but it also really didn't, you know? I just loved my professors so much.
And so did you end up working with any of them? So did you do research?
Yeah, so there aren't that many, like, opportunities to do research in, like, comp lit and philosophy because it's so deep humanities and they have PhD students also. But I wrote 2 honors theses, one for the philosophy department, one for the comp lit department. I didn't tell either department that I was writing another one until I had written them both. So they couldn't say, no, don't write that one.
Oh, so you were just writing this independent of any advisor?
Oh, no, I got advisors for both.
Oh, they just didn't know?
They just didn't know.
Okay.
And then they only realized at the end when the Brown reached out to them to be like, oh, did you know the student is writing 2 honors theses? I mean, theses, it's fine because she's written them both, but we just have to get something signed by the department.
How did you have the time?
We
were all struggling with
the pandemic.
I think, we were doing our theses at the same time.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, 2 of them. How long were these?
The comp lit one was about 210 pages. And then the philosophy one was, I think, 50-ish.
So you wrote an entire book for comp lit.
I did, yeah.
Have you ever tried getting it published?
My comp lit thesis?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
after all that?
It survives on the Brown digital repository.
It's time to publish it.
Perhaps.
What is it about?
It was about...
In broad strokes.
It was about modernism. But it was about...
But maybe not that broad. Yeah.
But it was about specifically formal choices that Virginia Woolf, William Faulkner, and Samuel Beckett made in their novels. And basically my argument was that as they got closer to, like, whatever their social commentary was, the form of the novel or the narrativistic kind of flow, like temporality, all of that kind of falls away, and you get left with this voice that is more stream of consciousness, more kind of disembodied. So that was kind of my argument that I picked 3 great novelists, Beckett known more for his plays, but 3 great modernist writers. And I talked about how as they got closer to the issues which they were passionate about, but also issues that are deeply, deeply difficult to talk about, the more the less their novels became or felt articulate or coherent. But the coherence of it really is the fact or the understanding that form can break down when the human mind is no longer capable of expressing such depth of sorrow or such depth of feeling.
Do you guys understand what you just said? No, yeah, me neither. Well, I hope someone does. But thank you for
Yeah.
breaking that down in detail.
Broad strokes.
Literature was never my strong suit. I must admit.
So I worked with my professors for those. My favorite professor from my first year, Arnold Weinstein, he is an 80-something-year-old man. And the
One of those sort of tenured.
the first time I ever took a class with him, I literally like texted all my friends like that changed my life. And it was just like one class, like the first class that he taught. And he just, the way he spoke about modernism, I mean, I became a modernist. I started studying modernism because of him. The way he talked about it and the way he talked about human experience. And he has this beautiful quote, I think, either the New York Times or the New Yorker, but in an article that he wrote, he said, reading doesn't take time, it gives time. He talks about the lives you get to live through literature. And he articulated so many things that I felt but hadn't put the words to myself. And being able to work with him on my thesis and just having that contact with him. I have a signed book that he like signed for me and wrote a little letter to me. I don't know. It was such like a fangirl moment for me because he was just like my favorite professor.
Did you know who he was before you went in?
No, I had no idea.
Complete sort of discovery.
It's interesting. He's like one of America's foremost Faulkner scholars, and he has a twin brother, identical twin, who is also one of America's foremost Faulkner scholars, except he teaches at Swarthmore. Interesting guy. Huh. Interesting family.
Is it just the two of them, or are there any more in the?
No, well, but it's just like they're identical,
yeah.
And then they
and both Faulkner. Yeah. I guess the U.S. is also, maybe not just the U.S., but I guess your time over there was also, I think, pretty. I guess a big positive was that you had so much access to these guys, right? And you were able to develop relationships with them outside of just the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, I had professors that I would like go over to their house and hang out.
Yeah.
And it was just so nice. I enjoyed. I had this couple of professors where they were married, and I had taken a class with one of them, and then she told her husband about me, and then when I was at his office hours, he was like, my wife told me about you, and I was like, oh, that's nice. And then I went over to their house for cheese.
You went over to their house for cheese.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. How much of I guess everything that you were soaking up in university came from that one-on-one time or from that informal time?
A lot. I mean, I think that, a lot of these professors I'm still in contact with. Mm-hmm. I still email them.
No more cheese?
No more cheese. Well, there might be cheese if we're in Europe at the same time. There might be cheese. But yeah, I think a lot of the value I got from it was just like the fact that I would just stop in the middle of my day and see a professor and we have a long chat, and it was super fun.
That was very self-directed, right? You would make the effort to go and meet these professors.
Yeah. Up to a point, it's like you make the effort for a while, and then once they've gotten to know you, then they start reaching out to you too, So it was really sweet.
I guess most students wouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
Unless you want some sort of economics teacher to refer you to some.
That's true. I think also it's like with like the humanities, like the deep humanities departments, it feels very, at least at Brown, it felt like a family. Like everyone in Complet kind of knew each other. I knew the Complet secretary. I hung out in the department building, so it felt very tight.
And the people that you were hanging out with at Brown, were they mostly people that were studying the same things, or were they just a mix?
A mix of people, I think. My closest circle of friends, my best friend's an art history major. Mm-hmm. My other best friend is an environmental science major, and then public health is my other. So it was kind of a mix of things.
How did you meet these guys? Was it, so how much, I guess, did first year housing?
Freshman dorm.
Yeah.
We lived on the same floor. Yeah. We witnessed each other in so many odd states, and
so those initial friendships,
they carried through all the way. And
where are they now?
All in New York. Literally everyone just moved to New York.
And so why, well, we're skipping way ahead, and we'll get there anyways, but you were telling me before the cameras started rolling that maybe the next step for you are to be in the UK. How come not in New York these days?
So I did
Given that New York's also a big cultural hub, and you're a writer. That's literally the dream, right?
Yeah.
Struggling writer in New York.
I would like to be in New York at some point. I think the UK, I did my master's in the UK. Mm-hmm. I did an MPhil in Cambridge. And that was a really good opportunity. When I got into that program, I was like, I want to go, even if it meant that I had to leave the US. And so I went to the UK, I did that, and I enjoyed it. And I want a London year, and then we'll see what happens after.
Okay. But yeah, so on the topic of Cambridge as well as what comes next, I think there's a lot of material to talk about next time. I think for today, we'll bring this discussion to a close. Is there anything that you want to leave me or any other listeners or viewers with?
No, I mean, I think I'm good. I think it's like...
We leave the words of wisdom for next time then.
Well, yeah.
Come prepared.
Words of wisdom. Yeah.
Well,
sure.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time.
No
We'll
worries.
see you next week.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you guys as well. We'll see you next week as well. Thank you for dialing in for another episode, and catch us next time. Thank you. That's all for today's episode of Dear Applicants. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you found the content valuable and insightful. If you'd like to learn more about our guests or the topics we discussed, be sure to check out our show notes for links and further resources.